Welcome to Bonehead Weekly. Do I need a hat? Oh, if you're listening to us, I know a lot of our people listen to this show rather than watch it on the YouTubes. But as you're listening, does it sound like I need a hat?
I almost put one on. I was going to wear my why does it have to be Snakes Indiana
Yeah,
Jones hat?
and you know me, I usually wear a hat, but
It
and
was from
hence why
glare.
it is
Did,
very glaring off my
I
shiny
mean, I'm
bald
not
head.
actually joking on that one. There is a glare.
Oh, I know.
did do y'all hear my cat, by the way?
No.
No,
Good, she's
Well, I
screeching.
did the other day, but I don't think that cat should be talking about those things on the courthouse steps, but it sure did draw a crowd. I want to know where the cat learned all those things for the Cat's Manifesto.
Listen, it's
That's a
a
lot of hate,
rescue.
James, coming
It's
from
a
anybody
rescue. I
named this
don't
hat.
know where I rescued it from, but every
Well,
cat
I'll
I own is a
tell you
rescue.
that cat doesn't want to rescue others.
There's not doubt. By the way, there's not doubt in my mind. You hear those things that, oh, if you die in a house with cats within 24 hours, it will, they may start to eat you if they run out of food. I'm pretty sure I'd be 5 minutes before I died, and at least one of these would try to take a bite.
You have two now?
Yeah, yeah, we've
I don't
got
think I've
Pepsi
been
in
to your
LA.
house in a minute. You don't
Yeah,
invite me
Pepsi's
over.
the most recent rescue.
Why don't you ever invite me over? Chad's been to your house.
You've been in my
I've,
house
I've
before.
I've been to his house several times.
We filmed an episode of this show in my basement. Remember my banjo, my get fiddle?
No, what show is this?
Dude, I don't even know anymore. Something about osteopathy, craniums,
Well, I'll tell you
something.
what would be more popular if this show was about kidnapping, true crime, whatever.
Hold on, Joe. This is just, we should use this for our tagline. The true crime is not watching our show.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I get one good line a week. The rest of them gibberish.
The horror of not watching the Boneheads. Hmm. Yeah, I like that one. Okay, whose idea was this? I know we always say it's Chad's, but I actually don't remember. I think it was Chad's.
This one actually was Chad.
It was Chad, and I'm trying to think if we did this before, and if so, if we have, I apologize. But yeah,
Well, you know what
I
we
just want to
have
do another
done as a
comp.
fun size? Revenge movies.
Yeah, yeah,
Didn't bother to tell him though.
yeah. It's but I said I love James and I really love comic books. We have for pretty much our whole life. Joe's sort of into them, but
I like the art. I like some of them, but I would never say that I am an avid reader or
yeah.
can read. So
I still remember. Do you guys remember the first comic book y'all ever got? Because I do.
I got two at once. I traded something for them at school, and I can tell you exactly what they were. Yes, go ahead, Dub. You say first.
Oh, mine was a copy of the X-Men that I bought at a Winn-Dixie, magazine display shelf,
I could smell it
and
now.
I just remember I don't remember the number. I've always wanted to look up the number, and I never have. But it involves them in like some kind of hotel, and they end up being knocked out by Mojo. And that's where the comic ended. And when I was a little kid, I think I was probably 6 or 7. I thought that's where the comic ended. I was like, oh, all the X-Men are dead. I'm laying in a pile. I didn't know that there was going to be another comic next month, and I never did get to read the end of that story.
So you've never went back to see, like me going
I've
back when we did a 1982, trying to figure out why my parents were taking me to Porky's at the drive-in. Remember this?
Yes, I remember this. Yeah. I remember your story, but do I ever go back and look for the comic?
Yeah,
Is that
why
what
didn't
you
you ever go back and
I,
look?
I honestly don't know. I don't know why I've never looked for it. I need to go back and try to find it because I've been obsessed with other comics because I only had that in Mad Magazine as a child. I didn't get to read Iron Man, who was my favorite character for a while. I had a Spider-Man and Spider-Man. I had a Captain America comic. Oddly enough, I'm a really avid DC fan, but most of my early comics were all Marvel.
So I want James to tell his story, and then I want to add because I didn't read a lot of comics, but you said something I did read a lot of. I had a ton of Mad magazines,
I
and
did too.
that probably shouldn't be a shocker to anyone.
I have a subscription. I had a subscription.
Yeah, I loved Mad, and then also read Cracked,
Yeah, yeah, which
Yeah.
is now,
which is
a
if you
website.
don't know what that is, that was the Kmart version of Mad magazine.
I don't, Joji, I don't even know if you know this. Cracked, when it became an online magazine for a long time, it was really, really good. but
No.
it was mostly due to their editor, who was oh my God, the guy who wrote John Who Dies at the End,
Oh, well,
David
that
Wong.
makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't know he was the
Yeah,
editor.
he ran cracked ma yeah, he ran the online version forever. And then and now it's just kind of trash.
Yeah. Okay.
So but yeah, sorry James, go ahead.
So, no, my first comics, I remember, it was against trading something at school, I'm sure, because my parents didn't. Yeah. we- there wasn't a comic book store in my town at the time. That was
Neither
But
here.
there was when we
that
went
was,
to
I mean, and
college
so it
there.
literally it was mom and pop's grocery stores would occasionally have comics on the thing, which now would be a gold mine to find because they would keep them there for years.
Hmm.
Um, and so it was oddly enough, and they became two of my favorite characters. So this is probably linked. It was the film adaptation of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I got the second issue, not the first one. You won't find the first one. I got the second issue of that
I have
put
no
out by
idea how
Marvel,
Indy ended up with all these snakes.
and then the Savage Tales of Solomon Kane, which was put out by Marvel. And Chad, that you bring up an interesting point because DC tended to the mom and pops tended to stock Marvel comics more around
Yeah.
where I grew up, and I wonder if it was because distribution at the time. Now you've got direct market and all
Yeah.
that stuff, and actually Dynamite collapsed. But other than that, or what it wasn't Dynamite. What was the company that was the main
Diamond.
Diamond. Thank you.
Diamond.
Dynamite is a comic company.
Um,
Uh,
yeah, no, it was yeah, the only introduction to DC characters I had was Super Friends and then later on Batman and Superman. Um,
yeah,
which
because
is
I
why
didn't.
Green Lantern is still my favorite character to this day because of Super Friends.
Well, I was about to say, and so it's funny because now that you mention it, like those obviously were Solomon Kane was created by Robert Howard, the guy that created Conan, so it was an existing property. Indiana Jones obviously was an adaptation of the movie. The first Marvel comic book. Now I read Friends. Once I got into comics, it'd be you
Like
go to
do.
no, you would go, recess. Some of them, some of the nerds would go out and do sports stuff, but us cool kids, we would read comics like recess. And so I would read, you'd bring a stack and you just, you know,
James, you're
share.
like class in the summer. I
Um,
school that up. You're like school in
yes,
the
you sure
summer.
did. Um, and and so I would read. I read a lot of superheroes, but I didn't. I didn't own a lot of comics at that time. And I can remember the first comic book I got that was a superhero that was mine, and I bought it new because I picked up a couple Star Trek comics along the way. But the first, it was Web of Spider-Man, and I will never forget it. It's issue Web of Spider-Man, which is no longer published. There's 1,000 Spider-Man titles a month, but Web faded away. It was the 61st issue, came out in 1989. So I was 9 years old before I got my first superhero comic. But it blew my mind because I had read Spider-Man comics, but during that time period, let me push my glasses up for Joe. Spider-Man had
Yo.
gained the power cosmic from the Beyonder,
Mhm.
and he didn't want to use it because he didn't want to lose his humanity and all that stuff.
I think it's called the
But
Defender.
he was fighting Dragon Man, and there's this cool scene where Dragon Man literally burns off his uniform and he's more or less naked in the subway with the train coming at him, and so he has to reform. He has to use the molecules around, in the air around him to reform a uniform and take down Dragon Man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the cover art on that is still burned into my mind forever. So if you want to look it up, it's Web of Spider-Man 61. You can find it. It's on Marvel's database for cover art and everything else. But yes,
See,
that was the first
that
superhero comic I owned.
the first comic book I ever bought for myself was the Iron Man 30th anniversary edition, which I still remember that cover because it had the gold in Iron Man's was actually shiny like gold metallic paint, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. The comic itself sucked, but
Oh yeah,
hey,
yeah. But I mean, and that was it. It's really the like it's one of those things now where I look back and I'd be like, wait a second, as a 40-year-old man, Spider-Man had the power cosmic and didn't want to use it. He could have just stopped Dragon Man in his tracks.
yeah.
Like it's one of those things I'm like, it was a cool plot line until you really went, wait a second. He was at no risk whatsoever. Anyway, so yeah.
So I
So,
think I remember my first one. You all didn't ask.
No, well,
yeah, we
you can
did.
tell us.
Well, you did, but I never. I just said I didn't read any of those, but there was one comic, and I can't remember. And I'm pretty. It had to be a Tomb of Dracula.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
vampire one, but
Which
because I'm trying, and the reason why I'm talking to you all, and I got to talk this out, is because you all will know the time frame a little bit better. It would have been the early '80s because my mom and dad were still together, and I can remember reading it in the weirdly enough in the closet of that room at my dad's. So it would have had to have been before '80, and I was small. So and I don't remember how I got it, but I remember vividly having it, right, and loving looking at the pictures through it. Not so much even reading it as much as I just like the art.
Hmm?
But
Yeah.
it was a Dracula one. What else could it have been other than Tomb of Dracula?
well, and Tomb of
It
Dracula
was a
is what
vampire one.
introduced Blade.
But I don't remember Blade or anything
No,
in it.
no.
I
Well,
can
I mean,
remember
Blade just appeared in an issue because it was Dracula's series. And by the way, those comics for the Comic Code Authority period, they'd be nothing today. But for the Comic Code Authority period, the Tomb of Dracula, sometimes they got a little dark. I remember reading one of them where literally it's Dracula pinning a child and just
yeah.
basically
Which
eating it.
it couldn't have been Tomb of Dracula, Joe, because Tomb of Dracula stopped publishing in 1979.
Well, it doesn't mean that I necessarily it could have been given to me. I don't know how I
Okay, that's true. Okay, so yeah,
so,
you
but
don't remember how you got it.
and I have no recollection. I remember having it, Chet. I have no memory of ever buying a comic book till I was a
Oh wait,
grown person,
you know
probably.
you were born before it stopped publishing. So yeah, that's right. Never mind. It could have been that. It could have been.
Well,
Well, I
and
wouldn't
also
have
the
remembered
Tomb
it
of
one.
Dracula, I know the
I
one that
doubt that
I
anybody
read
would
was
have
a
bought Tomb of
reprint.
Dracula. Would you say? And it could have been a reprint, and it could have been just somebody gave it to me. I don't
Yeah.
remember, but I remember it very vividly. And it's him walking down like those gothic stairs, and it seems like he's holding a lantern or something. And I don't remember past that. If I ever saw it again, I might remember it.
Yeah.
But yes, you too. Because have you actually said what today's topic is?
I did
It's
earlier.
yeah, it's comic books that were not DC or Marvel who are maybe lesser known. In my case, one of them isn't, but
Well,
his actual story is.
I only have one. Can I go first?
Yeah.
Hellboy. Mike Manola.
Yeah.
That's the only one I kind of know. I mean, there's some dragon. What's the dragon surfer dude? Whatever it is, I can't remember.
Published by Dark Horse Comics, by the way.
Published by Dark Horse Comics. Hellboy, I really enjoyed. I didn't really read it though till I knew more about probably after the movie, but I may have known some of it beforehand. I do enjoy Hellboy. I still think that Ron Perlman is a great looking Hellboy. I always think that they don't quite. I rewatched the Perlman ones with my kid. He had never seen them. And as much as I like the Del Toro movies, I always think there's still something missing in both of them. The second one is very much a Henson film, and I love that. And I love that it's much weirder and more, but I always feel that there's still something missing in both of those movies. And I know I'm the minority in that.
Yeah.
There's just I don't know, and and he's great as Hellboy, but there's just something missing in his performance. I don't know if there's just not enough snide comment. I just don't know, but there's something about it that's just not quite. I don't know how to say it other than it's just not quite right. And actually was hoping the David Harbour one that they'd get a little bit more of that, and I think David Harbour could have done it. Just that movie sucks, not necessarily David Harbour's fault.
Yeah.
But I do love Hellboy. Go ahead. I know you guys
And
much to
I
add to.
do love Hellboy myself too. Um, James, you want to go first, bud?
Yeah, I want to talk about one that if you're a horror movie fan, this character is fascinating and actually important in weird ways. Not Marvel, not DC, but has survived the shuttering of entire companies multiple times now. And it actually ties back to a character, or not a character, a human being that we mentioned on this show a few times. So, way back in the way when,
Way
there
back in the
used to
Wayback Machine.
be there used to be a little upstart magazine called Famous Monsters of Filmland. This was published by Warren Publishing. Warren Publishing, after EC Press went out of business, or I'm sorry, EC Press didn't go out of business, after the Comic Code Authority took away the ability to show quote unquote dangerous things. Screw you, Frederick Wortham, in comics, and they did the Comic Code Authority, and it's because Wortham argued that Batman and Robin were gay and all this stuff, and it was, oh, if kids are reading comics, it's basically the Satanic Panic in the 50s. So comics got heavily edited, had to be approved, and all that stuff. And EC Publishing, which had done Tales from the Crypt and all these things, kind of
Mhm.
went under. And horror comics, horror comics really took a hit. But Warren Publishing comes along. First magazine comes out in 1957, and they kind of bring this back. Now they're not the traditional size comics; they're magazine size, but they're comics in magazine size. And so they start publishing things like After Hours, Creepy, Eerie, Famous Monster of Filmland, Help, and then allegedly with the help of Forrest J. Ackerman, they create a character
Uncle Forey.
that is originally the host of the comic and tells little horror stories, kind of like the Crypt Keeper back in
Okay.
EC, or the Vault Keeper. There were a bunch of those characters, by the way, and they did
And
not
the
look like the
witch.
ones. They were not, yeah, the witch. They
Hmm.
did not look like the Crypt Keeper in the Tales from the Crypt series. It
Crypt
was
Keeper
just a
does not
weird.
look like the Crypt Keeper in the Tales from the Crypt
Yeah.
series. Just
So they create a new host to kind of give a throwback to EC, and they were like, well, what will sell magazines? And it turns out you don't need a creepy old witch. You don't need that. You need a, let's say, buxom brunette who happens to be a vampiress.
oh my
That's going
gosh.
to sell.
Did you say a buxom brunette?
Yes, yes. And
Would you
so
please tell me more?
allegedly, Uncle Forey had a hand in creating
I can't imagine.
Vampirella.
Uncle Forey Ackerman enjoyed talking about buxom brunettes. Sorry,
Yes,
there's like
yes.
three
So
old nerds out there. It was like, I can't believe he went there.
So Vampirella comes out, and for the first 8 issues, she's just introducing the thing, and it was Elvira before Elvira. She was a
Absolutely.
little campy, she was all that stuff, and then for some reason, 8 issues in, they're like, oh, she could be a superhero. Not really a superhero. She could be a character. We could just follow her around. And of course, as she lives her life, we'll just have her wear basically a one-piece swimsuit that shows her entire midriff and barely covers anything. By the way, when they used to have her at comic conventions, and they probably still
Mhm.
do, they would have to use body glue to hold her things in place. Um,
What things? The
the
buxomness?
fabric that covered her body,
The
because there was
buxomness?
not enough of it. And if the actress, and by the way, some famous people played Vampirella at cons over the years. Anyway, so these were coming out as 8.5 by 11 magazines. They became really, really popular, and Vampirella kind of became the symbol of Warren Publishing for a long time. They expand. James Warren moves from Pennsylvania, which was the publishing powerhouse of Warren, to New York. He is actually selling numbers rivaling Marvel Comics at the time, allegedly. However, it turns out he starts to be in bad health, and he really was the force behind the company. Ends up getting sick, company goes bankrupt. Would at the time been the end of Vampirella, except a upstart publishing company called Harris Publishing comes along, buys the entire catalog effectively, but including Vampirella. Now we get to the 1990s, and they reintroduce Vampirella in a big way, and this is when I met Vampirella, largely because my brother kept buying Vampirella stuff. Take that as you will. Um, and so
I mean, this is the one time where I agree with your brother.
I mean, dude, I would have agreed too. It's just that I was a little bit younger, and if I did it, my parents would have looked at me different. So I had to.
Whereas they
Anyway,
already had given up on your brother.
he was
Are
older,
you the
so
wimpy kid and your older brother's Roderick?
uh, except I ain't touching that cheese, dude. That's for 3 people that are familiar with that,
And
and
oddly
also
enough,
watch
I
our
had to
show.
watch that damn thing again the other night. Stupid cheese.
So anyway, yeah, and Vampirella becomes this really. She's an alien that it's an alien race that is for us vampires. So it's basically like Thor, except in our mythos, we made them these supernatural beings, but she really just is an alien that lives off human blood, et cetera, et cetera. But they make her kind of this anti-hero as time goes on. But she's really conflicted. She doesn't like hurting good people. And so she eventually comes around to this. it gets so popular that when Image Comics was at its height and was doing Shadowhawk and Spawn, they start crossing over.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a great series, and where really one of the best stories that existed outside the canon of both universes. But when they did a crossover with Shadowhawk, the reason I actually went, oh, they're actually making commentary about things like this. Um, Vampirella, because she's a vampire, and there is a certain thing that because even though she's an alien, to us she's interpreted as a vampire because again, when she does bite somebody, if there's certain characteristics in play, you do quote unquote turn. And if you're familiar with the character of Shadowhawk, which was another independent comic published by Image, Shadowhawk, the original, the first Shadowhawk, became a superhero because he was more or less kind of a Batman story, except he found out he was somebody that had a lot of power, was in pretty good shape, but found out that he was infected with AIDS and was going to die. And he
Mm-hmm.
says, you know why I'm still alive? I'm going to do everything I can to clean up the streets. Their crossover that he finds out that her bite actually delays the spread or delays the decline caused by AIDS. And this was in the 90s. And the end of that crossover is actually him realize that she infects him to help him. And the end of it is him going into AIDS ward to bite others to help them. And I can remember in the 90s that being like, oh, that's kind of an interesting statement. Like why is, vampirism viewed one way even in comics, whereas this is viewed differently. It was a huge, huge deal. So Vampirella really went from being kind of this pinup host to having some social commentary. By the way, they still don't draw her hideous. Let's not.
Mm-hmm.
They're selling some magazines. But it's really interesting. So I think she's a really important quote unquote independent comic. Harris, by the way, has went the way of the wicked, and Dynamite Entertainment has acquired her, and she does crossovers. I believe she's crossed over with let's see, oh shoot, Dracula, obviously. And there's an entire thing of how is she connected to Dracula? Because there's some tie there. That's been played out in different stories. I think she's even crossed over with Evil Dead because I think Dynamite has crossed over Evil Dead with everything
Mm-hmm.
at this point. Um, but yeah, so it's really just this idea of how that evolved. But I think it's an important, if we're going to talk about independent comics, I wanted to start with Vampirella because you've got this storyline that dates back to the 60s, but has really updated over the years. And again, I don't think Marvel or DC would have been able to do it and keep it as risque visually, but also pushing some of those limits otherwise. And it helped that it was magazine size because you could put it on the shelf next to Playboy, and people would be like, "What's this?" So anyway, I don't know, Chad. You may disagree. What do you think, Vampirella?
It's a good one. I've never read any of her stuff. I never really found the character interesting.
Chad,
So,
shut your whorish mouth.
sorry.
I've never read one sentence of Vampirella, and I'm telling you right now, it's a national Goram treasure. And if she is some sort of I don't know, if she's crazy in any possible way, send her over. Any kind of
Um,
issues, no, just
Here, Joe, I
demanding.
put there's a link real quick, Joe, if you want to look in the chat. That's the cover to the first issue from way back in the day. You might see why that picked up sales.
I'm no, I mean, it's kind of hard not to know who she is, though. Once
yeah.
you may not know the name, but even I'm giving Chad kind of, I mean, yes, no, it's yes, and seriously, if she's crazy, then she's, Cinder, yeah, totally my.
But and by the way, there's been tons of attempts to make movies based on her, and every time they follow, I think one was made maybe by HBO way back in the day, but there's never been a huge production.
All right, Chad.
So I've mentioned this a few times in the past, but I'm still going to talk about it because I want to talk about The Mask. So my introduction to The Mask was not the comic books, it was the Jim Carrey movie. And everybody who's seen that movie, and if you haven't, it's a very lighthearted comedy, romantic. There's like the romantic interest, so on and so forth. It's just very cartoony. So no, I was like, you know what? I actually want to go and read the comics up from this movie. And the comic is such a 180 from the actual movie. It's insane because The Mask is a horror comic book. It
Mm-hmm.
is not a comedy book. I mean, it has comedic elements to it, but it is dark as hell. So Stanley Ipkiss in the comic books is just a nobody, uh, down on his luck, and he's trying to find a gift for his girlfriend, and he finds this in a pawn shop, and he picks it up and puts it on, and suddenly becomes a lunatic who goes and kills everybody who's ever wronged him in the most cartoonish ways possible. And by the end of the first run, his girlfriend kills him while she's wearing the mask because he flees the police, kills several police officers. He finally gets home, takes the mask off, and then his girlfriend takes it away, puts it on so she can kill him to stop the madness. That's just the first run of the mask. The main character, who everybody roots for in the movie, he's dead after killing hundreds of people. Um, and like I said, it's originally was a one-off in Dark Horse Comics, in a kind of like a serial comic book. He was called The Mask, but it was spelled like the Red Mask, Masque. And then they liked the character, but they tried to tinker with it. And it wasn't until John Arcudi and Doug Mahnke, which Doug Mahnke is one of my favorite comic book people of all time. He did a lot of stuff in DC that is some of my favorite comic book work. Um, and then they just rolled with it. And then after that, the thing is, the mask goes to different people. Um, and there's the one thing that the movie missed is Walter. Walter is one of the coolest villains in comic history. He's just this big lug of a mobster. He doesn't talk. He just goes around and destroys. He's a wrecking crew. Nothing can stop him. And he just wants to kill the mask. There's no explanation for it. He just goes for it. That's all he wants. He wants destruction. A mute monster. It's great. And I mean the comic books go on. I mean, there's The Mask Returns. And in The Mask Returns, they kill so Kellaway, he's kind of a schlocky comic relief inept police officer in The Mask. But in the comic books, he's the one basically protecting people from the mask. He's the main focus, really. And he has the mask. They shoot him, and then the mask goes on to a nobody gangster, and then he proceeds in the next run of this to kill every single mobster, so he can take control. And it just keeps going on and on. Then the next comic book, it's four friends, and then after that, it's a guy who's lost his wife, and his hands were damaged in an accident. That's the Hunt for Green October. I mean, every single one of these comic books are dark. They tell a horrible story, but then when whoever puts on the mask, it is not only cartoony, but it is very, very violent. And I love the Mask comic books, and I wish people would not just rely on Jim Carrey's movie, which I still like. I will admit it. I know Joe's not a fan of it.
I no, I like scenes that my kid loves it now.
Yeah.
He
I
can
still
watch it.
It's still one of my favorite Jim Carrey movies. But the comic book is so much better than the actual movie. So I had to start with The Mask just because of how great it is.
And I don't doubt that you're not. I don't doubt everything that you're saying. I because the movie is a very much a caricature, right?
Yes.
And thank you, James, for sending me all the different B movie actresses who played Vampirilla.
I
And
just
I,
saw
I
him
just
pop
thought you
up.
might need that later.
yeah, for reasons. Research. Once again,
Research.
are they crazy? Or let's not use the word crazy, emotionally unstable? How about a bright engulf? All right, I'll stop.
Say what you really mean to say. How is their relationship with their father? That's what you're wanting to say, Joe. We all know it.
Oh, daddy issues. Let's roll this dice. Anyway, God bless him. Bless him. So
Hour in purgatory for all of us.
72 hours of fun and years of pain. So Comic Cons used to be, yeah, you're right, James. I just think the movie is very much a caricature,
Yeah.
and
It's
everyone even involved. If you look at more, I've finally what's his face. The director has finally started doing interviews, and he was talking about, it's just so much to that because it really wasn't originally a horror film, right? Because the
Mhm.
comic is a horror film, it just changed and
Yeah.
it's
became
really a
something
nod
different.
to Tex Avery more than anything.
It's a
Well, and
much
that's the thing. That's where they took their inspiration from. Yeah, in the comic books too, they took inspiration from Tex Avery. But you know who the other person they took cues from?
Toby Hooper.
The Terminator.
I've heard that before. Yeah.
And I mean, when they created the comic book, their main inspirations. Let me pull this up real quick because I got off of it. Their main inspirations were the Joker, Green Goblin, Freddy Krueger, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and finally, and it's still to this day, one of my top five favorite comic book characters, the Creeper, who you can barely see right here where my finger is. So
You are the creeper.
he's such a cool character. But yeah, all those characters, that's what inspired the mask, not
Right.
comedy, horror.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Now, can we all agree? Even my 8-year-old who will forgive Jaws 4, who will argue with you for an hour that Jaws 4 is superior to Jaws 3, even he will say Son of the Mask. That's pretty rough.
Oh my God.
And by the way,
Never made it all the way through it. I'm just going to be honest.
I haven't either.
I don't remember if I did or not.
And
We
you watched
had to
that.
see it because he got so obsessed with the mask, and he still will. If he's in the car, he will watch it. He will watch the whole scene over and over with the dancing, and he just loves it. But
They call me Cuban Pete.
yeah, Son of the Mask.
I'm the king of the rumba beat.
So-
Yeah, no. Son of the Mask, I've still never watched, and I watch a lot of bad movies. I won't
Yeah,
watch
just
them.
watch it. You can't throw rocks at it till you've seen just how bad.
Oh
that
no,
is.
I've seen parts of it. I'm not going to watch it all the way through.
I don't even know if Jamie Kennedy is really the star. It doesn't make. It just doesn't. Who's next? I've got my one.
James.
James.
Oh, do you have another one, Joe? If you want to
No,
go.
Hellboy was really kind of the one because I have sit here and just went back and forth and
You want me to give you one that you will be able to talk about
no, but
that I know you love?
what?
Judge Dredd.
Judge Dredd, but I never read them.
Yeah, well, and to be honest,
I have read and own several of the Mike Mignola Hellboys.
yeah. So Judge Dredd and none of the movies have purely captured Judge Dredd. The Carl Urban one is phenomenal, and that's not a diss. I love the Carl Urban one. Actually, when I was younger, just because I was so starved for comic book movies, I enjoyed the Sylvester Stallone one. Kids, there used to be a time where we got anything.
There's scenes in the
so-
Stallone one that don't suck.
Yeah, no, and I mean,
The
there's
production
times when it
design of it
captures.
and the look of it's pretty cool too.
Yeah. The big mistake, and I remember Wizard, the guy to comics, making this statement because I mean it was a big deal to get comic book movies at the time. And I think Wizard's the one that gave away the motorcycle because they gave it away as a contest. Um, but they said the only problem is when they cast Sylvester Stallone, their exact comment was in the movie column that they did, which you've talked about this before, Joe, that we should do an entire episode going through Fangorias and all the movies that were promised that never got made.
Never made.
Wizards
I
the
would love
same
to do
way.
it. I would love to do it. I would love to. I have every Fango before they went out of business and then came. I don't have the ones when they came back, but I have every Fangoria up until they went
The
out.
original run, so to speak.
I have the original.
But yeah, Judge Dredd, and so again, but their Wizards' comment was as soon as they cast Stallone, they were like, "Oh, he's not wearing that helmet the whole movie." Carl Urban does; he nails it because Judge Dredd don't take off his helmet.
Nope.
Machete don't text, and Judge Dredd don't take off his helmet.
No.
But of course, Judge Dredd comes to us from the United Kingdom, 2000 AD is where it started. And it is the actual Mega City 1 is a totalitarian nightmare where the judge is judge, jury, and executioner. And there's sometimes some supernatural type elements. I mean, Judge Death is his Joker, so to speak, if you want a direct comic comparison, who is dead effectively. But to tell you what's different from the movies, like there is it does change, obviously it gets updated over time, but the first Judge Dredd comic I read was probably late 80s, early 90s, and I can remember it was for me as a kid that grew up reading Marvel, it was the Punisher on steroids, or PCP maybe, I don't know, because he was out of his mind in some ways, because there was an entire the comic, and if you're a huge Judge Dredd fan, you may be able to tell me the exact issue, but it began with him doing just a normal routine, and somebody ate a chocolate bar, and it flagged as a crime because that person was over their restricted calorie content, because they have to weigh everything, they have to manage everything, they have to do everything, and so he killed him so that way he'd never go over his calorie content again. And that was how I got introduced to Judge Dredd. I think he's a fascinating character that even then I was like, but actually he's doing his job. He's doing it. He was supposed to stop that person from ever doing that again, and he did. And then everybody else, we make sure there's enough food to go around now because that person's dead. And so Judge Dredd, I think, is another one of those characters. And again, by the way, Judge Dredd was published, had it run by DC, I think, a couple different times, but did not start with DC. Was it DC, Chad, that published him? Do you know off the top of your head if DC did a Judge Dredd run in the States?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Um,
Well, you know what? Wait, no, they did have a Dread Batman crossover.
I think at some point he may have had they may have tried to Americanize him and all that stuff. But yeah, it Judge Dredd started way back in the year 1977. And he appeared in 2080 number one.
Yeah, James, he was in a 1994 DC comic book.
That's what I thought. I thought DC took a stab at him. They
Yeah.
are nowhere near as harsh as the British ones. Um, I don't mean to be that guy, but read the British ones. But yeah, there's so many different parts of it, and there are things that the movie does get right or gets a little bit right, like his gun, the lawgiver, that
Mhm.
adapts and does different things. Um, And by the way, just FYI, if you want to get really into it, the lawgiver responds to voice commands, and it's based on um, his voice commands. Here's the shooting options. The If you say or if he says it, it's linked to his voice. Standard execution is just your standard bullet. Heat seeker or hot shot, either one works, is a heat seeking round. Ricochet is rubber bullets. Incendiary is a napalm round. Armor piercing is strong enough to go through a tank, and high X is an explosive shell, effectively a grenade. And so that's his. I'm just patrolling the street gear. And so it is, again, if you love the Punisher, I do recommend go back and check out Judge Dredd, because the difference is the Punisher is a vigilante. Judge Dredd, as he says, is the law. He's fully backed by the authority of Mega City One, and he
And
is going
I
to do his
am the
job.
law, Rob Schneider.
Yeah. Mr. I am the law.
Yeah.
So yeah, Judge Dredd is another independent.
Excuse me, guys.
And I say independent because, again, for those of us that grew up in the 80s, if you weren't Marvel or DC, you got thrown in with independent. But these Judge Dredd's still around. He's been made into movies.
These were trying times. Chad, 'tis your turn as you yawn. Who's your third pick?
Second pick.
Holy shit, we're still recording?
I
I was
I
looking at
got
all this Vampira fan fiction here, Vampirilla fan fiction
Here,
here.
let me send you some more of
Let
these
me see.
images.
I just was there reading. I was writing my own fan fiction. If
By
that
the way, this
Gates
is
lady
a
can
true
get away.
story, and it was so funny. I can remember. I don't mean
Somebody
to
taught me
interrupt,
about some squid stuff. Some tentacles we can add in there.
but
Ladies like that, I hear.
well, actually, I think that's more. I think that's. I don't want to get into too much cultural appropriation because there's some connection. Anyway, um, way back in the day, by the way, comic books. Wizard the Guide to Comics was the comic book monthly Bible, and then Hero Illustrated as well. But I do remember Wizard used to have this column that ran for the first maybe 40 issues of it. Uh, called Babe of the Month and Hunk of the Month, and so it was a ripped man, and Vampirella I think was the first Babe of the Month, and they picked a very good photo of her for that.
Mm.
And by photo I mean it was a well drawn artwork.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. With
Uh,
tentacles. Jack.
So I gotta go with a character that never actually got his own comic book run. He was part of a team, and it's a part of it's the from Malibu Comics. It's their version of the Justice League or Avengers, which is Ultra Force. I want to talk about one of their members, Ghoul.
The
He
goo.
is, I legitimately love Ghoul. So in this comic book universe that is it's called the Ultraverse. Um, they have a virus called the Theta virus, and if it infects somebody, it can do one of two things: it will grant them powers, or it kills them. And Ghoul had the unfortunate accident of both happening simultaneously. It killed him and then turned him into a rotting corpse with superhero powers. So he's literally just a green zombie type character. His flesh is rotting off of him. His some of his skeleton is exposed. And he has the abilities to he can regenerate. He has the ability to talk to the dead. And even crazier, he has the ability to see imminent death. So if somebody's getting ready to die, he can see it happening and choose to prevent it from happening. Um, he's the wise character. He's the one that's always saying something smart ass. Um, and he really, other than the powers I just mentioned, that's all he has. He doesn't have super strength or anything, and he literally falls apart if hit too hard. But it's just his ability just to come in and just give shit to all the other people in the team. It makes him one of my favorite characters, just because he doesn't have the best superpowers, but he doesn't care. He just wants to be a smartass. He's an undead smartass. That's all he is. Um, so yeah, again, a lot of people don't know him. There was a brief cartoon called Ultra Force that I think that was in the early '90s. It was them trying to rip off the X-Men franchise. It
Kind of like
didn't,
Wildcats, the Wildcats cartoon series.
yeah, but Wildcats was a little more successful.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and I was about to say, and by the way, Wildcats was its own comic series, but these got made because the X-Men cartoon was a success.
Exactly. Um, and I just real quick because I've talked about Ghoul. That's why he's one of my favorites. It's just he literally a rotting corpse who's a smartass, kind of like Deadpool, but I kind of like Ghoul a little bit more than I do Deadpool. Um, each character is a rip off of another character in the on the Ultra Force. So they have a character called Prototype, was an exact rip off of Iron Man. They have Topaz, who's an exact rip off of Wonder Woman. They even have a character that is very similar to Captain Marvel. Because Captain Marvel is a little kid who says Shazam, he gets hit by a lightning bolt, he becomes an adult superhero. They have Prime, who's a little boy who covers himself in this green mucus, and out comes this really beefed up character that's not that bright. So yeah, they all have archetypes that they're ripped off of, but Ghoul is by far my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
All
There you
right,
go.
is it back to me now? Or
Yes, it's back to you,
And
my
I'm
um,
debating on my third and final pick. I don't know where to go with it, so this will give me time to think.
yeah, I'm gonna go with one that I think is important because you actually made me pick this one because you talked about Mask, and I've touched on this before in other episodes when we talked about the movies of certain years and stuff, and I think we did it the year this came out. I mentioned it briefly then, but I want to talk about a grim, dark, gritty, violent comic, and particularly one character that got made into a movie that's comedy as well, and that would be uh um I want to make sure I give the creator credit. I think it's Lowell Cunningham. Aerosol Press made 6 issues of this comic. Three came out one year. It was the next year before the next three came out. And there used to be a comic book store in town when I was a kid. On the rare times I got to come to Lexington, Kentucky, There was Red Rock Comics. It sold comic books and also had an adult room that I never went into because I was a child, and that would have been a crime.
I don't believe it.
But I do remember that that room was popular among the youth. It was located on Winchester Road, or not among the youth, but popular. It may have been sold more than the comics. However, there were all these issues in the quarter box, and then all of a sudden a movie came out, and it went from being in the quarter box to being on the wall for about $600 for the first issue. It was about these gentlemen who worked for a secret organization that once was linked to the government, but they became so secret the government wasn't even aware of them anymore, who had to stop aliens. It's Men in Black. Men in Black was originally published by Aircel. Aircel got bought out by Malibu, and eventually Malibu got bought out by Marvel, which is why the first Men in Black movie, if you watch the credits, is based on the Marvel comic. It is not. Marvel at that point had never actually published one. Now, once the movie was coming out, they reintroduced it and they made two versions of it. You can follow the one that's based on the movie, but they did do a new story with Lowell Cunningham involved based on the original one. And that is completely different in the movie because in the thing, J and K, some people point out, well, they're both white. They were, but that actually was because it was a black and white comic. It was low budget and it was just easier. J and K though K is terrible. Lowell Cunningham, I think his exact way when he was pitching it or when he was talking about it was he wanted K to be so grizzled and angry and to have seen so much that he would be like the product of Satan forcing Clint Eastwood as Dirty Harry to have his baby. So the intersection of Satan and Dirty Harry, and what their offspring would have been. And by the way, it's very much true. The first, even when Marvel published the Lowell Cunningham's relaunch after the movie was a success, this was not a success because people wanted the movie, and in the first couple pages of his relaunch where he introduces K as he originally wrote them. K and J are fighting an alien, and the alien grabs J, and K can't get a clear shot, so he just blows J's head off to get the shot, and then moves on, and they have to get a new J. And they actually take some of J's DNA and bring him back, and using some alien technology, but it's effectively a new J. It's not exactly the person he killed. And so that's who he is, right? He's going to be this character that if his mission is to stop that thing, he's going to stop because he's seen what happens when it fails. That is not what Tommy Lee Jones played. It is not what the movie is, and it is not a comedy. I mean, there's parts of it are funny if you like dark humor and horror. You know, if you giggle at horror movies, hey, if you're like a somebody that we all know that giggles at Hostel, sure, this is going to be a good time for you. But it is not what people know from the movie. And so if you ever go back and find any of the original Aircel Men in Black, you're going to be kind of shocked at what it is. We never have got that movie. And it's one of those things that I would be interested, much like you talked about the director is now talking about, it'd be really interesting to go back and find all the studio notes about how Men in Black became an action comedy and more or less Ghostbustery compared to what it originally was. And I would argue that answer is somewhere in a studio note is, can we make this Ghostbusters? I would think. I don't know that for sure, but that's my theory because it is not. It was. I mean, it was action filled. It was just uber violent, and again, you never. I mean, if you liked, and I did, I had fun with that series. But Kay was not a good guy. He was not, it was not he was delivering flowers when they discovered aliens, and so he was innately a member of it. No, Kay is there to hurt people, and he likes hurting people, and he's really good at hurting people. And so it's a different comic. So I wanted to give Men in Black a shout out because again, it's under Marvel's banner now, technically, but it started as a little independent press Aircel. And again, I kicked myself for not buying those quarter bin issues back in the day when I had a chance. Oh
well.
Okay. So I want to go back to the start of Image Comics. So when Image Comics first got released, it started out with two comic books. The first one was Spawn. Everybody knows Spawn. And some people know the second comic that rolled out at the same time as Spawn, but not as many. The Savage Dragon.
That's the one I was thinking of earlier, by the way. Because Savage Dragon, and I said the Surfing Dragon, but it's Savage Dragon because him and Hellboy had a crossover. Sorry.
Okay. No, that's I
Created
was
by
uh oh shoot, James, I had it in my
Eric
hand.
Larson,
Eric Larson, who
who
by the
did
way,
art for Peter David's Incredible Hulk until they allegedly there was a little bit of a falling out there,
oh,
and it has been alleged that basically the Savage Dragon is Hulk-like.
and which he is. But the funny thing about Eric Larson and the Savage Dragon is he's the only still holds the record for the comic book writer and artist who stayed with his comic book for the longest time. He wrote Savage Dragon continuously. That was his baby. If you're not familiar with the Savage Dragon, he's basically a humanoid man, green skin. Um, he has a fin, a large green fin on top of his head. Um, and he has superpowers and advanced, super strength and advanced healing. But the cool part about his this he woke up one day in a burning field and had no idea who he was. He was an amnesiac, and from there he joined the Chicago Police Department, which is the craziest thing. He is just a green dragon type man surrounded by normal humans, and he's a police officer serving and protecting. And he always manages to get his shirt ripped and to expose his big green hairy chest.
He's sort of like Hellboy in that way, in that he does get the hell beat out.
He does. He gets the hell beat him out of him all the time. Um, I've just been fast. I just love this character. I saw art. By the way, Joe made this comment. Joe probably doesn't even remember making this comment years ago, but I still remember it with because I never got out of my head about the fact that my two favorite characters of all time are Green Arrow and Green Lantern. He goes, "It's just because you like the color green." I don't know if you remember saying that,
I mean, I'm not shocked
which
because I'm not entirely wrong.
I'm not shot. I have seriously thought of, and also the fact that I love the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, who are green,
It is
and
your
I
favorite
don't know if
color.
anybody noticed.
Also, another
This.
independent comic, obviously.
Yeah, all three heroes that I have picked in today are green.
Yep.
Hey, Chad, I don't mean to
like
interrupt you, Chad.
Go ahead.
The other thing I want to say is that was one of the, and I may be wrong, because I know Spawn had some spin-offs or limited run spin-off of it. The two police officers had their spin-off, Sam and Twitch or whatever it
Yeah,
was.
Sam and Twitch.
But one of my brother read Savage Dragon, which means I read it because he'd read it and then I'd read it. Because he was immediately in Image. It was like, oh, they're not Marvel or DC. They're independent. They do whatever they want, and there was some validity to that because they had all broke away. They were all the artists that felt they wanted to own their own creations and stuff. That's cool. But it was also he was in his teenage rebellious years and was like, oh yeah, no, they'll put him out of business. I'm like, Marvel's not. Marvel has been bankrupt and then go to business. They'll be fine. But anyway, it had one of the first spinoffs from Marvel as well, and I think Freak Force, right? Because I love Freak Force. Do you remember Freak Force?
I don't know Freak Force.
Let me make sure I've got the title
Pretend
right.
we
But
don't.
Freak,
Ray.
what now?
I said, pretend we don't, Ray.
Freak Force spun off of Savage Dragon. They were basically, the idea was, much like you said, he worked for the police. Well, if the police couldn't handle it, you could hire the Freak Force, and they were bounty hunters out of Chicago.
Oh yeah, I know the red guy because he's from the Savage Dragon comic books.
Yeah, and all of them started in Savage Dragon. They spun off of there. They first appeared in Savage Dragon #4, so very early in the Savage Dragon run. But but their stories are all so messed up that there's a reason they're called the Freak Force. Some of them are not passable as normal humans, but I just love. Here's just a quick overview from the premise. This comes from Wikipedia. I'm not creating anything here. Some of the characters are named here, with the exceptions of Super Patriot and Mighty Man. All of the team were part of a failed Freak Force program where the Chicago Police Department attempted to recruit other superpowered officers like Savage Dragon. Dart was a vigilante from Detroit, was the first recruited. Heridas joined soon after the dragon rescued her from the abusive captivity of her parents' basement, where they kept her because she was a freak. Um, and then Ricochet was rejected as too young to be a police officer. And then she helped rescue the final member, Rapture, from a homicidal pimp who was going to kill her for not giving him her money. So, anyway, I just remember the Freak League because I always joked, and Joe may remember this. I used to make the line, and it's where I came up with the idea. I wanted to not do Freak Force. I wanted to do the Freak League and cast every actor that ever played a freak in a movie. Just
Yeah,
have them
you did. I
interact.
just think it's funny you've both now in the less than 10 minutes ago. Joe would probably remember this to the one person who was like, I don't know, was I there?
No,
Yeah.
literally back in the day,
Except for
I
I
Chad.
was
did
doing
say
all
I
these.
Okay,
did
God
I
bless
did say
Chad.
I don't think you remembered that.
It's a
I said
it doesn't it sounds like something it's a combination of me or Chad, and Chad goes, nope, that's exactly it. Was like, no, I don't think that's what you said at all. But it between Chad or I, we will get this thing mixed
yeah.
up.
No, I wanted Udo Kier. I wanted Steve Buscemi.
I do remember that. I do
I was
remember.
going to, and I wanted to call it the
And
Freak
thank
League
you
and
for
just
the
have
other
all these
Vampirella
freaks
post.
together. And it was, and so Freak Force
Go
was
ahead.
it.
Sorry.
By the way, also too, Toxic Avenger, also green. I just think green's a popular comic. I don't like the Hulk.
But you're actually onto something, right? Chat, and I know this is not about Marvel, but
But
originally, what color was the Incredible Hulk?
gray.
He was gray, and they went, "Oh, that it's not eye catching, right?
Yeah.
It
Well, then
doesn't pop
that
to you off the
I thought
newsstand."
it had something to do with the printer ink that they
It
were
does.
printing.
It was more
Yeah.
expensive too. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right. But green also, that was why they went with green. Was they were like, well, what's cheap, and what's going to make you go, what is that?
Well, and
And
like I
green is
said,
the answer.
it's primary colors mostly that are make up comic books. It's red, blue, yellow, green.
Oh, that's why they used to be called four color funnies.
Yeah. And then of course the black and the gray. But I will point out that out of my only two of them are green. I like Booster Gold. I like the Question, who is not green, and the Creeper, who is yellow, but has green hair. So yeah, no,
I
I
just think
just
you're more
wanted, I
slightly
wanted to,
concerned with this than I am.
I just don't, it never hit me until you said that years ago. And I'm like, son of a bitch, is that really
What
why I
else
like
have
these
I
characters?
said that's ruined your life?
Just that.
Oh,
Everything
No,
else,
there's more, but
I just
damn it.
don't pay attention to
Damn
there's
it.
more, but he's been going to some counseling. He's okay.
you. So yeah, those are my picks. I just wanted three green characters.
Can I do one more because it's
You know
the
what?
on,
You own a third of this show. You can do whatever the hell you want.
you're right, and I
A
will.
third of the time.
I want to do one that's as my mom used to say, they used to be called funny books and they were funny. I remember my mom saying that to me when I was a kid. And I was like, okay, whatever. But there is one comic series that I picked up. I actually picked it up with its first issue, which came out in 1998. I would have been a freshman in college, and I can remember I went to the comic shop. That is, it's on Waller Drive. I'm forgetting the name of it, but I walked there from my dormitory. It was about an hour and a half.
Comic interlude.
Yes, it was a mile and a half walk from where I lived on campus,
Don't
but I,
ask me
I didn't
another
have a
question for
car.
the rest of the day.
I didn't have a car and I wanted to go. I went, and so I saw it on the shelf and I knew I was going to buy it. And the reason I was going to buy it was because of Edgar Allan Poe. And the comic was called Lenore, the Cute Little Dead Girl. Lenore, the Cute Little Dead Girl is one of the funny, if you have dark humor, it is one of the funniest comics you can read. And I picked it up. It was original publisher with a company called Slave Labor Graphics, which they did action comics, they did other stuff. I mean, they did traditional. But Roman Dirge is a creator of Lenore, the Cute Little Dead Girl, and it is a macabre, dark comedy about a little girl who died and didn't stay dead. But she still to herself is just a cute, playful girl, little girl. Everybody else, of course, sees her a little bit differently. And so the first issue is it
Yeah.
may not be the first. The issue that I literally went, no, this is it. This is hilarious. She lives in this haunted mansion, this old creaky Victorian mansion on the outskirts, that's literally hidden in the woods, because that's where she just woke up. And she wants a new toy, and she goes and she finds this cursed chest. It's obviously pulsing with evil, but she's a stupid little kid. She's supposed to be about 3 or 4 years old and doesn't know it. And she opens it and she finds a little doll, but it's ripped. And she goes, I'll fix it. And she's trying to sew it, and she sticks herself, and a little bit of what's left of her blood drips onto the doll. And the doll, being a cursed item, basically pulls an Annabelle and comes alive. And it's like, your blood restores me. And he immediately tells his entire backstory about how now that he's returned to human form, he's going to take over the world. But then he stops and goes, wait a second, I'm still just a doll. With your blood, I'm supposed to turn back to my full power as an evil warlock or whatever. And she just looks at him and goes, I've been embalmed.
Like Ralphie?
Yeah, it's literally the equivalent, except she's only supposed to be about 4 years old. And every issue begins with
I was in my forever box. Sorry, it's the one
she is in. Every issue begins. Roman Dirge, creator, obviously based on the Edgar Allan Poe line, but he pulls from other Edgar Allan Poe works. And every issue begins with, "Doubly damned for that she died so young," which is a Poe line, and it's every line about it is everything. Like there's entire episodes, and so Sony, back when the internet was still its heyday, fans of Robot Chicken, the Seth Green show, might not remember. It started as a short on what was called Sony Blast. The Sony website used to do these little brief, short, independent films called, and Robot Chicken was originally called Sweet J Presents.
Yeah.
They also did one based on Lenore, which Sony would not make a movie of this today for love nor money, but because the internet was just for nerds, they did these. And the first episode, which you can probably find on YouTube now, of Lenore, the cute little dead girl, these 2 minute to 4 minute animated shorts they did, was called The New Toy. And to tell you how dark this show was, and how inappropriate it was. The new toy is about Lenore deciding that she wants a new toy, but she's 4 and can't read. And so she's in front of 2 stores, but she accidentally goes into the pet store. And she thinks she's playing with squeeze toys, and it's the hamsters.
Oh.
And she picks one up and she goes, and she starts to squeeze it and it makes a noise. And then she squeezes it too hard and she goes, this one doesn't make noise anymore. And the end of the episode, it's a pet store owner coming over going, well, that was a cute little girl. She goes out and she goes, all your toys are broken. And then he looks over at the hamster cage and she has squeezed the life out of all of them. And it's just like, all your toys are broken. It's a dark, 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 weird humor. Kind of like another one that is in the same genre is Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, which I believe, Chad, correct me if I'm wrong, was partially created by somebody that had something to do with Invader Zim.
Yeah, you're right.
And Johnny the Homicidal Maniac is great too, because there's this entire subgenre of, we can't do this in a Sunday comic strip, but we have dark, dark humor because one of the best best issues of Johnny the Homicidal Maniac is because he's homicidal, but technically has never killed anybody at that point. He gets killed and he goes to heaven. But because heaven to him would be being able to kill a lot of people, he starts making people's heads explode in heaven. And God finally goes, you've got to go back to earth. We can't have this happening up here. You didn't sin, so you get to be here, but no, we can't have this. But the best part is he makes Einstein's head explode because he said somebody should have done it years ago. There you go. It's a dark, dark series.
I can't. Well, I'm going blurry, so I don't know if I should mention my last one because my camera sucks.
Well, that's okay. Probably this was the last one, though, right?
Yeah. I just real quick, I'll say,
yes.
There wasn't a comic book for it, but in the late 90s, Tim Burton did a series of Flash animations for, I believe it was Adam.com. He did 7 shorts for a hero called Stain Boy.
Which I'm familiar with Stain Boy.
Which you can watch on YouTube if you're not familiar with Stain Boy. It's basically a little boy who leaves a trail of dirt behind him, and the police send him out to go fight other villains, and he just goes and they end up killing themselves.
I do have one last one too, right along, and it was an adept, but unfortunately, it's not really a comic character. So it doesn't really fit, but they did some comic versions of the Books of Blood, and there was one of it's a Son of Celluloid that I really liked of Clive Barker's, and it's a really great short graphic novel. If you ever get a chance for any of you out there to watch it, basically it's about this cancer that becomes sentient and murders people and loves movies because it's from behind a movie screen. And take from that what you will. So, hopefully you all have enjoyed this. I'm sure we missed 6,000 different independent comic book characters. If you'd like to complain to us, or you have some Vampirella cosplay or some of your fan art you'd like to share with us, we'd lovingly love to see it. Especially if you're a big burly guy, those are usually the ones who tend to send me the pictures.
But real quick, by the way, I just sent just to follow up on this. I just sent Joe an image of a character called Kid Death and Fluffy, which was a series of, and they did a special cover where it was Kid Death dressed up as Vampirella, which he's a little boy and he's got bombs strapped to him to represent
Yeah, I
part of
see.
her
I
name.
can't make a comment about this. Not in these times.
Kid Death and Fluffy. That's
Yeah.
another great weird independent comedy comic.
This has been Bonehead Weekly. Sorry, Chad, were you going to say something?
Bye.
Bye.